I'm super, super happy. We are quite a big group today, and it seems this is because the topic of local youth work is very important, and it has been highlighted multiple times, most recently in the Belgian presidency in European Council, when the new resolution was adopted with a specific highlight of local youth work and local youth work policy, offering a unique place to translate all the human values into concrete hands-on actions. And with the fourth European Youth Work Convention coming up in Malta, this is really a good moment to bring in and to put local youth work and local youth work policy in the spotlight, which we are doing this season with our colleagues from Europe Goes Local Snack. Today is the first of the season's talks, and today idtalks EGL. We will find out what Europe Goes Local is, why it is needed, what is its scope and vision, discover some important quality development in tools for quality development at the local level. We will also try to understand what is European Charter on local youth work and much, much more. And because this is a very special moment to start the season, we have not one, not two, but three speakers today here with us. So our speakers today are Jonas Agdur. He started as municipal youth worker in the 80s and now is part of KEX. It's a local network of local departments now uniting over 80 member organizations in 9 European countries. And he has dedicated a lot of time and his energy, effort, and experience as a chair of the organization. Second speaker we have is Dr. Marko Kovacic, who is an associate professor of public policy and political sociology at the University of Rijeka in Croatia, who is specializing in youth and education policy with over 15 years of experience in research, teaching, and consultancy. And finally, we are very, very happy to have our colleague from the snack, Judit Balogh, who is the coordinator of Europe Goes Local since its beginning, 2016, when it started. Judit has big experience in youth work as well for over 25 years, starting in Hungary and then continuing her activity with European programs Europe-wide. Dear colleagues, my pleasure to pass you the floor. And from what we have agreed, Jonas, you are starting.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I will try to share my screen to start a presentation. This is me in the picture as well. And as adding to the presentation, I'm also a member of the steering group of Europe Goes Local since the very beginning of this project in 2016-2017. And I am about to talk about what characterizes quality youth work and what is required to deliver it, which is, of course, I will end up saying that this means something for policy, but I think it's a good idea to have a sort of idea of what is really characterizing quality in youth work. What I'm going to say is based on, as said, I started in the 80s, but that's not the main base for what I'm going to talk about. These documents are the foundation of what I'm going to talk about. It's a report that came actually in 2015 on quality youth work, a common framework for the further development of youth work, trying to state what is needed to develop youth work. And this is what, as said, Europe Goes Local has been working with since 2017. The second one is the recommendation from the Council of Europe on youth work that came in 2017. And I would say it's still the most important policy document on a European level on youth work. It's also very well articulated. The third document is, of course, our European Charter on Local Youth Work that came in 2019 and has concretized the previous political documents, both the Council of Europe document, but also several EU documents in terms of resolutions and recommendations. And last but not least, I would say, is a document from the Council of Europe, Congress of Local and Regional Authorities. We are here talking about local youth work, and the Congress document is, to me, an important input on what it takes to run quality youth work at a local level. So this is sort of the municipalities and local authorities talking to themselves. This could be used when arguing for youth work at the local level. But over to some conclusions about what characterizes quality youth work. Firstly, that you reach a diverse group of young people, including those at risk, which requires a couple of different things. It asks for an active outreach, that you don't just you're not just satisfied with the ones you reach, but you're actually actively outreaching to include different groups in youth work. And this is not only a question, and this is important to remember, it's not only a question about, we pity the poor ones that are not reached, or these are poor people, we need to help them. It's there because a creative, dynamic youth work asks for different kinds of young people meeting together and creating the future together. So it's for the sake of youth work, it's for the sake of those that already take part, that we also need to include all different groups in youth work to make it a dynamic environment that young people both need and deserve. Secondly, we need to do this. We need to offer different activity formats. Drop-in activities, group activities, non-formal education activities, projects, events, and so on. Young people is not a homogeneous group. They have different interests and they want to join youth work for different reasons, and they have different ways of approaching youth work. So in order to reach many different young people, we also must offer different formats. Thirdly, addressing different types of needs and interests. That is to say, we have to, of course, sports and culture are common things in youth work activities, but we also need to address societal issues and, pure fun. Young people, it's the young people's complete whole environment that are interesting to them, and youth work must address the whole environment that your young people are living in. Secondly, a good non-niched public environment. Young people don't like, sellers with secondhand equipment and so on. Some do, some don't, and we need to give young people the same kind of environment that we ourselves want to work and live in. This is the first requirement to make young people to reach out and have inclusive youth work. Public environment in terms of, for example, cafe for socialization, meeting rooms, and activity areas. Secondly, that all young people experience a safe and welcoming environment. This requires zero tolerance towards all forms of violence and abuse. And to add to that, here we are actively nice to each other. It's not a question how boys, for example, how bad they can behave before they are not allowed to take part any longer. It's a question of non-tolerance, stating that youth work is a place that where everybody should be appreciated for who they are, and you should try to involve each other. It's not just a task for youth workers, it's a task for everybody taking part in youth work as well. And we must be very clear about that. I will actually get back to that a little bit later in my presentation. Actively designing activities in relation to values. For example, in the traditional youth center, the winner stays at the pool table. Is this the kind of value that we want to promote in youth work? Saying that the law of the strong one survives, the less strong will, be left on the side. We must think about what kind of values we produce when we arrange or design activities. We must problematize norms and stereotypes in words and in actions. Not the least, as youth workers, we need to challenge gender norms when dividing tasks. Not letting, the male youth workers do something and the female youth workers do other things. We must actively work with the gender norms to prove and to show young people that it's not a problem who you are and what your gender identity is. Thirdly, perhaps I'm going a bit too fast, I don't know. I will ask my colleagues soon. I warn them now. That young people are involved in initiating, planning, running, and evaluating activities, which also requires a couple of different things. The ability to challenge, engage, and show new exciting opportunities. Widening horizons, not sort of asking young people, what do you want to do? Because they will answer within the framework of their knowledge. We need to broaden the horizons. We have to be active in, showing the world around them, showing possibilities that they are not aware of. We need to have clear expectations on commitment and taking responsibility. Youth work is to be run together with young people, co-created, not created for young people, not by our ideas, but created together. And this asks for that we actually show that we need you, not as a phrase, but in actually making activities possible. Young people are not a sort of victims of services. They need to be co-creators, and we need to show that this is what is expected. And we need to believe in the will and competence of young people. Truly believe. I've been doing 18 years of youth work practice for myself, and this is a key, that there's always some kind of a capacity, some kind of a competence in every young people you meet, and you have to find that, and you have to sort of make it alive and show young people that I do really believe in you. Now I've shown 3 sort of preconditions or what characterizes quality youth work. I wonder if my colleagues Marko and Judit have any comments to what I've said so far. I promise to let you in and give reflections. Marko, have you?
Yeah, thank you, Jonas. No, I agree, absolutely. And I just want to echo and emphasize the importance of the process, not necessarily the end game, but, it's all about the process and how we invest into it. So, yeah, completely agree with you.
Yeah. Judit, any supporting words from your side?
Of course, yes. And yeah, I will come back at the end of your presentation, also emphasizing the importance of this framework. It's really crucial not to let all this happen in an ad hoc way, but that we should pay attention to a stable framework and background for all these requirements. But absolutely supporting words from my side and agreement.
Thank you. And I could once again stress what Marko said. I mean, what is successful youth work? Is it a successful activity that actually reached the preset aims, or is it the process that led to that young people actually participated and developed new skills and capacities? And the answer is, of course, the second one. It's easy to get trapped. You have a project, you have project aims, you have applied for money, and the project should have achieve certain things, but still the process of creating the project together, to running it together with young people, is always more important than the actual outcome of a project. Fourthly, so I go on, that young people further develop the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values they need to be able to participate and to move forward in life. And this requires talking to young people about what they want to develop through their participation. Not just saying we could do this together, we could co-create it together, but actually articulating, what will you learn from this? What would you like to learn? Perhaps learning is the start of some projects, whereas learning comes as an effect of other projects, but we need to talk about it. We need to articulate that we are not teachers, but we want to sort of make free your learning. We want to relieve your learning from boundaries. We want you to yourself formulate what do I want to achieve by taking part in youth work? What would be exciting to be able to do as a result of the activities that we are co-creating together within youth work? So articulate and talk together with young people about their learning is crucial in youth work. Secondly, offering on-demand, non-formal education possibilities. That is to say, there's a lot of, more or less adult, pre-planned, non-formal education options offered to young people. But if young people want to actively participate in a project, it might be the case that they need to learn things in order to be able to participate. And we couldn't predict this always. So we must also be able to provide on demand. This project, I want to learn this because I want to take part in this project. Okay, fine. Then we need to try to make space to also have on-demand, non-formal education possibilities. We need to document and recognize their learning. And this has two different aspects to it. The first one is, of course, that we know that if learning is recognized and documented and talked to with young people, you have learned this, the learning gets more solid, it gets more integrated into the personality. And that's extremely important, of course. But secondly, it's also important for youth work to be able to show that young people are actually learning in youth work. We are talking a lot about youth work as a learning environment, but to be credible in all this talking about the learning environment, we must be able to show that this is actually also taking place. So documenting and recognizing the learning of young people is both important for young people, but it's equally actually important for youth work as such, being able to show these kinds of outcomes of our work. And last but not least, again, making use of their competencies when running activities. Not saying, okay, now you learn this, now we could go on, but see how could it be used? How could it be used in relation to other young people, for example? Not setting a full stop when a non-formal education activity has taken place, but actually see, is there a future for this? How could this be used in our activities or, of course, also outside of youth work in their future lives? 5, that it gives young people a place in societal development, which requires supporting young people's commitment and ability to act on all issues that affect them. We shouldn't lock ourselves into youth work creating a bubble, school situation, racism, and also, of course, access to activities. I mean, we must give young people the ability to articulate these kinds of needs, these kind of challenges they have, in order to support them to be their own voices in these kinds of issues. We need to have a broad network and opening doors for young people to make their voices heard. There's sometimes a tendency that youth workers speak on behalf of young people, and sometimes, of course, this is necessary. But in general, it's much more efficient and it's much better that we make young people capable of talking for themselves. Not taking their voices, but giving them the floor, having people listening to them directly. It has a stronger power, and it at the same time is also a way of learning for the future for these young people concerned. We need to have clear structures and processes for young people's possibility to influence youth work, policy and practice, as well as society at large. This couldn't be an ad hoc activity. Young people's influence in society couldn't happen ad hoc. Okay, now we see, do you want this? Now let's see how we do it. There needs to be established structures and clear processes known to all young people on how to influence society, and youth work must be, a role model for this. Youth work must be a good example on how to create within itself structures for young people's influence in what we're doing and how we're doing it, and not to say the least, the policy that should guide us in our doing. 6, last but not least, steering towards quality requires a couple of things. This is formulated in terms of measurable qualitative and quantitative indicators and aims. we need to be this kind of this specific in what we want to achieve. We couldn't just talk about youth participation because this will be interpreted in 1 million different ways depending on the context and who's listening and who we're talking to. We got to make up indicators saying, for example, how many young people are actually taking part in evaluating youth work. Because evaluating youth work is, of course, an important thing, both for youth workers and for young people, and for our learning on how to do youth work even better in the future. But there needs to be an indicator saying we need to have young people part of the evaluation, for example, and we need to set aims in relation to this. Are we happy that 10% of young people taking part in youth work also take part in evaluation? Or we want 50 or 60 or 70% taking part in evaluation of the activities that we run together with them? I take the example of evaluation, since this is also a sort of a starting point for future actions, making young people feeling that they could actually influence. They evaluate what is happening, they come with suggestions how this could be changed into an even better way. So it's an opening for participation, and it's also a way to measure and do follow-up in a way that we could show what you are actually achieving through doing youth work. That activities are documented and followed up in a way that generates the knowledge needed for continuous development. I mean, there is in different countries quite a lot of monitoring of youth work, just collecting figures on how many young people we reach and perhaps on how old they are and perhaps on what gender they have. But the qualitative aspects of youth work needs also to be followed up and documented, because we need to know how young people perceive youth work. We need to know to what degree they feel that they are actually participating and to what degree they are learning and what they are learning. So we need to do follow-up on this, as I said before, both for their sake and for the sake of youth work. That there are clear procedures to get everyone involved in the analysis of outcomes. That we analyze, once again, youth work together with young people, but also with the surrounding society, and not to say the least, together with the political level, making them aware of what is needed, how it looks today, what is needed to develop youth work for the future. That qualitative values are put in relation to costs and the target group reached as a basis for active prioritization. We could not just pretend. It's an old discussion in youth work circles saying that if we only save some young people, from drugs or from alcohol or from running around in the streets or whatever, we have paid our costs. Nobody ever believes in this because we will never be able to show the effect on one single individual. And we need to make prioritizations. Whatever kind of business you're running, if it's school or if it's social services or it's a private company, we need to prioritize our resources. We are not trustworthy if we don't. And in order to do that, we must have follow-up on these things. What young people do we need to reach? Do we reach the right young people? Do we have the inclusive climate that we pretended that we have? Do we actually reach the right young people? If we can show this and that they learn, we become much stronger, and we get the knowledge we need to develop further. So, before I ask the crucial question, is this what young people get? Are there any more comments from my dear colleague? No. Marko has no comments whatsoever, neither from Judit. This is going to go faster than I predicted. I thought you were going to talk a lot, a lot of comments to what I was saying. No, so is this what young people get? Yes, you could say, but in varying degrees. Young people are not a homogeneous group, as we have stated before. Based on KEX, that's the organization that I work for, we are gathering statistics and questionnaires to over 12,000 young people aged 12 to 19 taking part in youth work only this year. And I will give you some observations that might trigger your discussions from what we see in all this material. Just to get you started for some kind of group discussions, maybe. First, some positive figures. Index safety and treatment. it's based on actually on 23 different questions on how young people perceive their safety and the treatment, both from youth workers and from other young people taking part in youth work. Are they met in a positive manner? Do they feel safe? Does youth workers stop someone if they make it unpleasant for others? Are they treated equally, etc., etc.? And the index, and I will explain this a little bit, is 89%. This does not mean that 11% does not feel this. 89%, all these questions that are asked to young people are asked on a 5-grade scale. So this is the general degree of confirmation to statements. 89% agreement to the statement that they feel safe and secure, which is, to me, at least, a rather high figure. Could be higher, however. Index influence participation and taking responsibility based on questions if young people have been encouraged to come up with ideas, encouraged to actually run activities, if they've been part in taking decisions on youth work, etc. And keep in mind that this is going out to all young people that are taking part in youth work within our organization. In Sweden, this figures are from. 66% are feeling that they have a high degree of influence, participation, and taking responsibility. Index learning, are they learning something while taking part or not? And the general sort of agreement to this is 82%, which I also consider a rather good figure. And finally, of course, there are other things. I talked in the beginning of a good environment and, you know, facilities and so on. And we also have an index on environment and activities, and the index is 90%. And to me, at least, these are rather good figures. But we could also have a closer look, because these are overarching figures, and you need to analyze them and put them in relation to other things and so on and so on. And if we have a closer look, we could see a couple of different things that might be interesting. Young people in youth work-led groups participate more actively and learn more than those in autonomous groups. That is to say, youth workers actually make a difference. These are quite big differences between these two different kinds of groups, and the degree of participation, and not the least the degree of learning, is much higher when there's a youth worker present supporting the groups. Secondly, 14% of the respondents have had serious problems related to alcohol, drugs, or violence during the last 6 months. If this is good or bad, you could think about yourself, but we actually reach young people that have serious problems. But the interesting thing is here that 50% of these have talked to a youth worker about their situation, whereas only 25% of them have talked to someone in school or to social services. That is to say, which is not a surprise, of course, but is useful when we talk about cooperation with other sectors, that young people actually talk more to youth workers about their life and situation, and that the knowledge among youth workers about the life and situation of young people, especially perhaps those that have some kind of serious problems, is bigger among youth workers than among social workers or among staff working in school. And sadly, of course, 15% of them have not talked to anyone. And I mean, that's the group that's perhaps most problematic. A closer look might also reveal young people with disabilities and those that have experienced problems are more often abused by other young people and feel less safe in youth work. At the same time, the average answer to if youth workers stop those that are making it unpleasant for others is 87%, and there are no variation between different groups. So young people that are abused by others feel this as strongly as the ones that have not been abused, that young youth workers actually interfere when something is happening. What might be the analysis of this? Well, if a bit brutal one perhaps might be that we are reactive, but we are not proactive. This continues. We stop the ones that are making it troublesome for others, but we need to keep on doing it because this abuse continues. It may also reveal youth workers talk more with girls and encourage them more than boys. They are more social, so to speak, with girls. Young people that don't have passing grades are the ones that feel the least encouraged to take responsibility and are the ones that have the lowest perception of learning. What might be the analysis of this? It is easier to work with girls and those with better self-esteem, perhaps. The troublesome are a bit heavier to work with. We talk and are more social with girls and young people that are a little bit more successful in school, which of course creates better self-confidence than those that are not so successful in schools. Things to think about. These were just some glimpses. More is to come in our annual report that will hopefully come within a month or so. We will try to forward it so it could be disseminated also to you that are listening to this presentation. But now over to Marko for some more on what we know and don't know about youth work.
But before that, Marko, if you have questions to Jonas, you may ask them.
Oh, it's okay. No, yeah. Thank you, Jonas, very much, and a very warm welcome from my side too. I'm really happy, you know, just to see that there are more than 90 of us, or at least it was more than 90 of us here from, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, the southernmost is Uganda. And then we had like northernmost Sweden, I think, and the most eastern one is Azerbaijan, and the westernmost is Portugal, or I think Ireland, perhaps. You know, it depends where in Portugal a participant is. And I think that this is just simply amazing because it goes so well with the thing that I'm going to be talking about. And this is actually the role of the research. And why is it important actually to invest in knowledge production and in relation to youth work? And this will be very nicely blended into Jonas's presentation. So, given the fact that I'm completely IT illiterate, let's just, you know, cross our fingers that I managed to share the screen, because sometimes even, you know, just these very simple stuff that we need to do is very challenging for me. So I put shared screen, and please tell me that you see my presentation now. Okay.
Yes,
so
we also see your side of your presentation. So if you put it on the present mode, wonderful. Now it's perfect.
Amazing. I really want some kind of reward for this, you know. Okay, guys. So I'm not going to be very long. So the general idea is that, you know, just for me to explain and just to perhaps to explicitate why is data research and knowledge building important for supporting local youth work. And I started with, you know, just listing all the countries that we are in, or just the frameworks in which we operate right now, because I mean, I think it's quite easy and to assume that, you know, the realities are so different. You know, it's not the same to have, you know, to be a youth worker or young person in Serbia right now, or for instance in Ireland, or whatever, Uganda or Morocco, where we have our participants from. And that's why, due to the fact that young people are heterogeneous, as Jonas mentioned several times, you know, it is important, you know, just to have and to know, you know, what works and what doesn't work. And for that reason, you know, research is of incredible importance. And that's why within the Europe Goes Local, which is, you know, a partner of this idtalks, we decided that we gonna, you know, just invest a bit more into knowledge building in order to support this local youth work. But before I start, you know, just discussing, you know, what we are doing within the Europe Goes Local, just allow me just a few minutes about, you know, really to point out to very explicitly why I think, you know, as a researcher, as a university professor dealing with youth studies, you know, why I think it's really important to invest in research and not find, you know, research so boring as sometimes we do. I think that there are three reasons why research is important for local youth work. One, because, you know, it demonstrates the effectiveness of certain measures. So basically, with by using research and hours, we can see whether the activities that are being done within the local youth work have the effect and what kind of effect they actually have. On the other hand, as Jonas mentioned, also youth work should be youth-centered, and you know we cannot have youth work without young people, and that's why it's also important, you know, just to know, you know, what young people want, what they need, and how to tailor specific measures in relation to their needs and aspirations as such. Research and hours can help us with this. And in addition to this, the last one is it is important that youth work is adequate, that, you know, activities correspond to the needs of not only young people, but also local community. And here is, you know, this interaction between local community and young people is something that research can explicitate. So basically, if we want, you know, just to be very blunt about it, research informs practice. You know, it informs, you know, what to do, how to do certain stuff, but also, you know, it inspires youth workers for their professional development. Because by, you know, doing research, by understanding, you know, the reflexive practice of how to be a youth worker and what does it mean to be a good youth worker within a specific local context, within a specific region of your country that might differ from other region or from other country, it is something that we can, you know, get if we do quality research. In addition to this, you know, just research also informs policy as such, and it forms policy in a way that, you know, all those decision makers who have a power to invest money in local youth work, they can see whether this allocation is adequate or not, or whether, you know, in some specific parts of youth work should be invested more, or, you know, some other parts of youth work can be defunded because, you know, they simply do not deliver things that need to deliver. Research and knowledge building basically also identify gaps. So we, by engaging in this research and hours, we are identifying what's missing, and then, you know, we're just informing, and then we can advocate for more money, for more resources in order to offer this specific tailored youth work. And that's why local youth work is of incredible importance in relation to research, because research basically tells you, can, you know, just to illustrate the complexity of the whole community, and gives, you know, recommendations of how to do stuff. In addition to this, research also inspires other researchers, other scientists, you know, just to keep doing the stuff that is relevant in order, you know, just to support the quality development within the local youth work. So as I said, you know, if we want to have an effective youth center and adequate youth work, I don't think that it is possible, you know, just to have that without the implementation of certain, you know, methodologies that exist within the knowledge building universe as such. But when we talk about youth work research, and not necessarily youth research as such, you know, I think that it's very important to point out that there is a huge difference between the basic and the applied research. So the basic research basically is giving us the snapshot of what's happening within young people, without the community, within the society and such. But applied research, which is also something that we are doing within the Europe Goes Local and will be doing, you know, also is intended for solving certain problems as such. However, you know, when we talk about research, of course, we always talk about the academia and higher education. And I'm sure that if if I would to ask you right now whether you have a youth work program in your countries, that the answers would be different, you know, from country to country. There are some countries, for instance, Sweden here, that has, you know, a very well-established youth work program with, you know, lots of youth research, but then there are other countries that perhaps, for instance, from like Croatia, that doesn't have this kind of stuff. But why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because, you know, if we invest in youth work research on identifying the important factors of local youth work, that this can bring, you know, many benefits to the development of this local youth work. Why? Because if youth work research and youth work as an academic field is integrated within academia, it basically gives legitimacy to the youth work as a field. If we have, you know, researchers, university professors that focus exclusively on youth work, not only that they will help the development of local youth work, but they will help the development of youth work as a whole at the national level. Why? Because, you know, we still live, I mean, that's good that we still live, you know, in a society where research and academia is valued, and hence, you know, it can give legitimacy to a profession as such. Nevertheless, you know, I think that, you know, unfortunately right now, what the problem is that, you know, the youth work as an academic field is not consolidated enough. And that's why we're lacking research in some fields. On the other hand, we do have research data, we do have knowledge about local youth work. And what I would like to do right now is just give you a very short, you know, overview what we do know. So for the purpose of this presentation, what I did is I did, you know, a bibliometric research on different types of research that exist within the local youth work universe, in order to understand, you know, explicify, you know, what's out there, what do we know, what researchers, scientists actually say about local youth work. And to be perfectly honest, you know, if we talk about the fundamental academic research, the answer is not so much. We don't have that much of national representative sample research, you know, that would say, okay, so youth work is this, and that, and youth work isn't this, that, or that. What we do have, if we have a plethora of different types of applied research, and they mostly come from two different sources. On the one hand, they come from different Key Action 2 projects within the Erasmus Plus universe. And on the other hand, they come from something that is called RAY. RAY is a network of national agencies and researchers that studies the implementation of the European youth programs, namely Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Course. So if we want to know what's happening on local youth work, there are three sources where we can find that. We can find that, you know, within, you know, academia. The second one is within civil society. And the third one is by extrapolating sources from RAY research as such. Okay. So as I said, you know, unfortunately, we don't have much research from academia, but we do have from the Key Action 2 projects, you know, within the Erasmus Plus. And we do have, you know, things that we can extrapolate about local youth work from the RAY research. So we know lots about the citizenship, you know, and how European youth programs or influence citizenship at the local level, organizational learning. We know about the digital youth work, about learning and development. Also, RAY research focuses on capacity building, participation at the local level, and also, you know, capacity, and also, you know, the influence of Corona pandemic, you know, within this Corona pandemic that we have had, there were lots of research as such. So these are the things that we do know. So this is something that exists. However, the problem is that this is not being done at the academia. And that's why I started with the importance of the academia and academic research as such. On the other hand, what is important to know is that if you're interested in local youth work, you know, you would definitely go to the RAY network website, and over there to see, you know, the report about the implementation of the European Solidarity Course, because European Solidarity Course, for all of you who don't know, are very community focused, and also they focus on local community as such. And hence, through various, you know, mechanisms, we can extrapolate the things that are important for local youth work. But then the question is, so this is something that we do know, but what we would like to know, what we don't know. So what we don't know, unfortunately, is if we talk about Europe as such, we don't know what's happening beyond Erasmus. So Erasmus is, you know, the Erasmus universe is very limiting because not everyone in Europe uses Erasmus, and not everyone, of course, outside Europe uses Erasmus as such. That's why it's important, just to invest in research in order to understand what's happening, not within the Erasmus universe. Also, what we don't know is that we don't know about the countries that don't have necessarily well-established youth work architecture. So if you have a country that has a good developed youth work architecture, there is a high tendency that you will have lots of data or more data than some other countries where youth work is happening, but this well-established youth architecture, meaning that youth work is not recognized as such, we will not know what's happening, in these kind of countries. So there's a discrepancy between countries, with, well-established and recognized youth work, namely political and socially recognized, and countries where youth work and local youth work particularly exists, but we don't have data. In addition to this, also there are countries with highly developed research endeavors and strategies, but also there are countries where youth work is happening at a local level and national level, but unfortunately there are no researchers who are conducting research, and hence we as an international community do not know this thing. And keeping that in mind, this was one of the reasons, this was one of the incentives why within the Europe Goes Local, which is something that Judith will talk about, we decided that we would go, in the next 3-year period into the direction of the knowledge building. So what we are doing right now is re-establishing this research pillar, how I like to call it, where we would, just to gather knowledge about local youth work, try to consolidate, codify this, and try to offer it to international community what's happening and why is it happening. How are we going to be doing this? And this is, and I'm going to stop with this. So we're going to be doing that by, implementing the idea of the academic committee that will consist from approximately 6 academics, because once again, I said that academia is still the important for discourse legitimacy. I started with this, and we will do, just gathering information and trying to produce quality pieces of paper in order to describe, to analyze, and to interpret what's happening in local communities, in local youth work, so we can inform the practice, so we can inform the policymakers, and so we can put, stuff on the agenda within Europe Goes Local, but also going beyond. By doing this, we hope that we will go beyond the Erasmus, that we will go beyond the countries that, are very popular, that are they have well-established research and youth work architecture. And by doing so, we hope that we're going to contribute to building knowledge on local youth work. So I stop here, and I now give my presentation to Judit. Of course, if you have any questions, we can then discuss about this later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the floor, and also I thank my colleagues who gave this very interesting insights. Jonas about quality youth work, and Marko with bridging already on knowledge building to Europe Goes Local as a project. So I would like to give a bit of frame or background also to this idtalks, and tell you what Europe Goes Local is, and how we think, or why we think local youth work and local youth work support is crucial in Europe and important. As Anna was mentioning in the beginning, lately it has been recognized at the European level, and also little by little at the national level decision making, that actually youth work is happening in the local context. Municipalities are the closest to young people, so it's crucial and very important what municipalities actually offer to young people. It's not enough to have better and better European policies and tools which exist already. There are many, many great tools and policy frameworks. In many countries, there is also a good national framework and legislation and even resources at the national level. But if this doesn't go to the local level, and if there is no exchange of information, knowledge, and experience between these different levels, and the local level is not engaged in all the processes, then young people can just benefit from good youth work in a very ad hoc way, really depending on from city to city, situation to situation. And with Europe Goes Local, we wanted to create a framework in which municipalities can cooperate with each other, can learn from each other, can network, and that they can get a better access to all the resources that are available at the European level. Let those resources be knowledge, let that be policy, let that be research, data, or also some specialized support for funding opportunities. Because Europe offers a lot to municipalities, but our experience was in 2015 when this project started to implement or became reality from an idea that most of the municipalities are not aware of what is happening in the European context and what they can benefit from. So the national agencies of Erasmus Plus and the Solidarity Corps decided to set up this strategic partnership, this strategic framework, and through the different national agencies all around Europe also started to engage municipalities and those local NGOs which are connected to the municipalities in delivering local youth work. By today, we have a network about 600 different stakeholders all around Europe, also including the partnering regions of the EU, so Eastern Europe and the Caucasus and Southeast Europe, and already with some ideas of also engaging the MEDA countries maybe in the future. Yeah, to provide different opportunities and resources and possibilities for the cities and villages of these engaged regions and countries. As I said, Europe Goes Local is really a large scale cooperation with different layers, different levels of engagement, an offer at the European level and also an offer at the national and local level. But what is the backbone? Maybe you remember the first slides of Jonas. Jonas was showing you some crucial documents which establishes the criteria for quality youth work. And this European Charter on Local Youth Work was one of those guidelines or documents on quality youth work. The European Charter on Local Youth Work is the backbone of Europe Goes Local in terms of guidelines and quality check. This document was created within Europe Goes Local. We reached at that time in 2018 and 2019 about 200 municipalities. That was our base that time. We grew after that. Through 2 rounds of consultations, we co-created this checklist, which is now available on the Europe Goes Local website in several languages, actually all languages of the member countries of Europe Goes Local, and every municipality, every local NGO can use it as in their own work to check and ensure quality in delivering youth work. We also use this to provide quality in our own activities, what we offer in Europe Goes Local. And what do we offer? Just a bit about what Europe Goes Local can bring also for you. We have a new strategy. Marko was referring to it already. Since 2014 to 2017, we are working on a new strategy, and this is what we offer. We offer quite a lot. We offer different activities at the European level, which are open for all relevant stakeholders. We offer different training courses, webinars, specifically targeting the promotion and learning about the European Charter on Local Youth Work and how to apply it in practical terms. We offer several study visits and seminars within the network. For now, when we took a look at this 3 years offer, we saw that there are 37 seminars and study visits that are going to be implemented in the different countries all throughout this project cycle. We have a European EGL event every year when we go in depth into some discussions with about 100 people, 100 stakeholders, and try to provide a platform, a physical platform for networking and peer learning. We also have an online platform. I think many of you are a member of this online platform, where we also promoted the idtalks, and where we also invite our members to promote their activities and ideas and to start discussions. We have project labs, seminars, and the knowledge building and needs analysis of our partners. And with this knowledge building, we have two aims, and also with the needs analysis. We would like to provide knowledge for the sector, which they can also use for their own knowledge-based planning and simply learn more about the context of their work. But the knowledge building and needs analysis is also for ourselves. So we base our activities on data, on facts and figures, and that we can create a knowledge-based plan for Europe Goes Local, also looking to the future beyond 2027. Besides the European offers, it's also important then to mention that Europe Goes Local also offers activities at the national level. And these offers and activities are all calibrated to the different needs at the national context, at the local context, and national agencies and the Salto centers are taking care of these offers. And last but not least, the contact, how you can reach Europe Goes Local. If you are interested in the details, we have a website. We have a presence in social media on almost all platforms except X, where we are not present, but most of the popular social media channels we are present, and you can of course also reach out via email to me as the project coordinator. I think that was it from my side, just to give you a brief framework. But yes, I'm also open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judit. Thank you very much, Jonas and Marko, for the input. We are very much aware that today's talk is very different from our usual ones. We wanted to lay the ground to give you a little bit of an insight into the program and its significance, because throughout the next ID talks, we will go already into municipal level and municipal practices to somehow capitalize on the knowledge that is built today.
I have a question while we are waiting for
Yes, Maria, who doubted? Please.
people to formulate theirs. I know that there is something about inclusion in the charter that Jonas and Judit, you were talking about. Could you tell us maybe a bit more about it?
Perhaps I could start then. I mean, that's one of the core principles. The charter is divided into 5 different sections, and one of the core principles of youth work is that it should be actively inclusive. So that's very much in line with what I started off with in my presentation, saying that we need not just to sit and wait for young people, we need to be actively inclusive. So that's one of the, I think, 8 core principles of youth work, participation and learning, and there are some other things as core principles as well. But inclusion is a central part in youth work, also in the charter.
Hi, I hope that you can hear me well because I'm walking. My name is Martina and I'm from the youth center, coordinator of the youth center in Balogh. It's a small municipality in North Macedonia. We've been working with the youth center for this is our 3rd year now that we're starting. And I have few thoughts that came to my mind, among which one is like, you said that we should engage youth and include them in all the processes and from start to beginning in the design, implementation, and at the end, which we are trying to do. But something that we find very challenging, for example, here in this small community that we work, is that young people often do not have many experiences or opportunities. So it's kind of hard to figure out how to engage them in these processes, first of all, because when they're a little bit younger, maybe they didn't have opportunities to go out and see the world, maybe. So it's very hard for them to even grasp the concept of some things that we are telling them, and to kind of include them in these processes. So I would like to know if there are any good practices that can be implemented in such cases. And another thing that I have on my mind is that now, like young people here, we have limited number of young people, so they are going to school. Many of them are also studying in neighboring town, so they spend a lot of time actually traveling and being at school, which is mandatory. And when we expect them to come to activities and this kind of stuff, we actually notice that this is challenging for them from that perspective, but also when they have some free time, they choose to do something that brings them some financial benefits. So this is also something that it's quite challenging for us, because they would choose to work in a local cafe over participating in activities that we offer, or in educational activities. So I would like to hear if there are any thoughts or any experiences regarding this. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. So keep this in mind, dear speakers. Maybe make some notes. We take one more question from Faye, and then one more question from the chat, and then maybe answer all the three together.
Hello, thank you. First, may I say to Jonas and anyone from Sweden today, I'm very sorry for your loss of young people after yesterday's tragedy. So one of the things I think is really important is, in the voice of young people, is listening to them in a school environment, because that is where we do tend to have that large collection of young people that are, hopefully in an inclusive setting, and a lot of minorities are represented. In Ireland, youth work is very much separated from the school environment, and we don't have youth work in schools very often. Our main targeted youth work scheme, something called UBU, has a clause written into it that the youth work isn't done in schools. And I'm just wondering, do you think there is a place for more youth work in schools? I know in a lot of, for example, the Scandinavian models would have youth workers in school. That would just be a general part. And I personally think that's a good way to engage with young people. And a couple of years ago, when the United Nations Committee on the Rights of Children reviewed Ireland's adherence to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Children, one of the things they highlighted is that we have a lot of school councils, but that input doesn't seem to go anywhere. It doesn't seem to really be heard. It's just a tick box exercise. And I think I'd rather not have it than have it and it be a tick box exercise, because I actually think it becomes disempowering if it is treated in that way. So I'm just wondering where you think schools or even other educational institutions have a role to play in the youth voice and engaging the young people.
Thank you very much. And maybe a general question, a summary of several questions in the chat from my side again. Judit, if in the end you could also clarify a bit, what are the processes of participating in different activities by EGL, where they are promoted, where they can be found? Yeah, so maybe a more technical question to the end. Just to remind, we have these two thoughts, ideas, one on youth participation generally and participatory practices in youth work. And second one is the link with young people's free time, leisure, out of school activities. And a very interesting insight that I've been recently listening more and more, that young people prefer spending their out of school free time on making a financial benefit of it. So some thoughts from your side, whoever wants to go first. Marko.
Yeah, I would like to just to respond to this school-based youth work and this cooperation between schools and youth work providers. So research basically demonstrate that in communities where there is a cooperation between various sectors, you know, that young people are more happy and they have higher life chances as such. Also, you know, anecdotally, what we see also within the Europe Goes Local is that if you have a good cooperation between schools and youth clubs, basically this is a way to go. And I honestly think that, you know, youth organizations as such, they have to invest, you know, much more time into promoting, you know, themselves into informal education. On the other hand, of course, it's the role of the formal education to recognize, you know, what are the limits of formal education as such, and, you know, and just to allow youth workers to do their stuff as such. There are several nice examples that exist, you know, across Europe, you know, where what can be like a starting ground or the first step in this kind of stuff. One is like debate clubs, because it's very formal on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's, you know, using non-formal education as such. And, you know, teachers or, you know, just school counselors and this kind of stuff, they are quite prone, quite willing, you know, just to open schools for this kind of stuff. And this is, you know, something that is, you know, so you can try to see whether there is, you know, the opportunity for your local school, you know, just to involve this as an extracurricular activity, which would later on, you know, just so to say, infect, you know, young people, you know, just to go to the local youth club or to engage in various activities as such. And I think that this is, you know, very, very important. On the other hand, what is also important is to advocate towards the, you know, academia and higher education, because we are the one who are educating teachers as such. And if we don't, you know, just offer the idea and the perspective of the importance of cooperation between formal and non-formal education, it will be much more difficult for all of you who are, you know, practitioners as such, you know, just to later on to try to, you know, establish these kind of bridges. So I think that there are nice, very nice examples, and there's also that is called something that is called with that you can check on the Europe Goes Local website, which is called the Change Makers Kit. And over there in the Change Makers Kit, I mean, there are some, you know, just examples of how to cooperate between schools, but not only schools, but also, you know, other institutions and, you know, youth work providers as such. So this is the best that I can do answering you at this point in this regard.
I want to perhaps nuance what Marko said a little bit. I think we must be clear about the difference between youth work cooperating with the educational system and doing youth work in schools, because these are two different things. One is cooperation as at an institutional level, the other one is doing youth work with young people. And one of the core principles of youth work is that it should be on voluntary basis. So, I mean, what Marko said in the end, you know, getting access to facilities, doing things in school facilities. That is, there are lots of good examples of that, and I totally agree on that. But we must at the same time be aware of that sometimes youth work is done in schools in a way that it turns out not to be youth work because that it's mandatory for the young people to be there. And then youth work will lose credibility in the eyes of young people if they also do non-voluntary activities. So this is a kind of a, you know, professional integrity of youth workers to keep up the standards that we are doing voluntary work. We are based on the needs of young people, not based on the needs of schools. Our starting point is always to be young people, youth-centered, and this might also, in some cases, turn us into conflict with school establishment. I mean, I used to take when I talk to youth workers and I say, if young girls come to you and say, we have a problem with sexual harassment in the corridors in schools, which is quite common. This is a case for youth work to establish a group around this. So we must be aware of what is what, so to speak. I also want to make a short comment on this question about, you know, yes, it's complicated and sometimes hard to make young people participate. The important thing that it's their process. I mean, they must find, you must try to widen horizons, show things that are possible. There are good practices on this, because we could see in the kind of, you know, follow-up that we are doing, that when you get a process with young people running, it's fairly okay to keep it running. The problem problem is almost always for youth workers to stimulate young people to get it started, to make them believe in themselves, to find the issues that really concern them. So it has to be their process. That is the starting point, and you have to show them possibilities. Thank you.
Can I just say on that, and I do agree with things like debating clubs and things like that, and it's fantastic to have the voice of young people. But even when you call something a debating club, for example, that excludes a lot of young people in their own mind because they think, oh, that's not for me. I'm not capable of that, because that's what they've been told so many times. So I think developing those debates in a youth work setting, and then at the end of it to say, you just did a debate. Do you realize the skills that you just developed? And I coach on some European Solidarity Corps projects, and the youth pass competency that I think are a really good thing to introduce into youth work, without necessarily at the beginning saying, oh, this is a youth pass and this is what we're going to be doing, but just week by week building on that, and then bringing it in that it is a more structured approach, and these are all the things you've been doing. And I think very gently and very subtly bringing these things in, because sometimes if we put too lofty a title on something, straight away young people will exclude themselves. So and that's not their fault. That's because they've been conditioned to believe that they're not able, they're not worthy, they don't have the capacity when they absolutely do. Thank you so much. I have to leave early. I apologize.
Thank you. Bye. Judit?
Yeah, I would like to also react on both questions, both on this how to engage young people when it's difficult to engage them. Maybe and start with try to engage them first in a needs analysis. So try to figure out ways of analyzing their needs, get them engaged in the dialogue, and then I would agree or join to what Jonas said, then let the process happen. It's not important to run a project immediately or apply for a grant or do a mobility project. Just let it happen as according to the needs and pace of the young people in the community, and then gradually it can grow into a mobility project or any other project that we would say that qualifies as a European cooperation activity. But I think if there is a good way of reaching out and asking what they would need and how they could do that, then it can be a starting point. Another thing about the school-based youth work or this cross-sectoral cooperation, we have to say that it's stronger and stronger again on the European agenda to encourage cross-sectoral cooperation for youth work. So to reach out to other sectors with which youth work is complementary and work together on strategies and approaches. On the other hand, I also agree that we should never lose the principle of youth work, that it's voluntary and it's with the full engagement of young people. And I just wanted to say that, for example, Europe Goes Local is a framework in which study visits are happening to show examples from different European countries. So, for example, if there is a strong need to see how school-based youth work is, then this project could be providing a study visit, for instance, if we get a strong request for that from several stakeholders. It was mentioned that in the Nordic countries, it's going on, and also in the Baltic countries, like Estonia has a very strong school-based youth work culture, and yeah, that could be something interesting to study. And there was the question about how to join the project and how to join activities or how to take part in activities or follow. So there are two ways of being part of Europe Goes Local. There are activities, study visits and all other activities that I was showing, which are open for applications, most of them. The only exception is the yearly conference, which is for our network. But The other activities are open for all European and neighboring partner countries. If a municipality would like to have a more systemic approach and would like to work more on its youth work policy and strategy, it's better to get engaged also with the national and regional processes. It's a way to join, to contact the national agency or the Salto Center, the regional Salto Center. And also, of course, we have online tools. We have the Changemakers Kit and the Charter, which can be used by anybody. The Changemakers Kit, which we didn't mention in the presentations because we are just working on renewing it. We will launch it in autumn. We will launch a new version in autumn, but the current version can be used now. Also is a kind of self-learning, self-development toolkit for municipalities and NGOs, and it provides a lot of knowledge. It's on the Europe Goes Local website. So yeah, this is it. And where the activities are, they all appear always on the Salto website. So if you subscribed for the newsletter of Salto, then you will always hear about the possible activities, but we also promote them on social media.
Judit, maybe a short question to you, and Marko, I've sent you a message. Could you please look at it? Short question to you about good practices regarding local youth policies. Do we have something like this? Is it something in the scope of EGL, or maybe a sister snack that is more focused on local youth policies?
Local youth policies, we don't have a collection on that. And there is no snack on local youth policy. There is something that touches youth policy, is another snack, democracy reloading, but it's more on youth participation. So it doesn't touch all as such youth policy, but there is a lot of study and research on the website of the partnership between the Council of Europe and the EU. So the Youth Partnership has done a lot of publications, toolkits. There are toolkits also which can be used for on local youth policy development or youth policy development as such.
Thank you very much. I think we don't have anything further. Some of the questions are repeating. Maybe after our short exchange in messages with Marko, just maybe to clarify again that if you look, this was concerning the inclusion aspect of the charter. So please have a look, and there is a specific mention of making youth work accessible to all young people, and this is a part of the charter, but it's not very much elaborated. And if you would like to learn more, the link to the charter is there in the chat. I see that Jonas wants to say something. This will be our last comment for today because we are running out of time and need to start wrapping this ID talk up. Please, Jonas.
So I will just say one more thing, and the upcoming EGL conference in March will actually be about youth work policy and youth work policy development. And there we will have a presentation, so I think at least 6 or 8 good practices, and hopefully some of this could be spread to this network as well to give inspiration for the development of youth work policy, because we won't have any sustainable youth work development without sustainable youth work policies. It's an extremely important question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In the meantime, Maria has shared some important links as well in the chat, and among which are the collection of amazing practices from all over Europe. Please have a look, and it has also a lot of further reading reference and links to organizations and municipalities that are doing amazing work at the local level. So please follow this as well. Before adjourning today's meeting, I would like to remind you that there was somebody all this time trying to capture and listen and put all of this conversation around EGL on a visual side. And Olaja, if you are ready, we would be interested to see what is today's graphic recording.
Yes, sure. I hope you can hear me and see soon my shared screen. So this is the snapshot, as usual, of today's meeting. A very good start for the season, I would say, because it really gave a good glimpse of what Europe Goes Local is about, starting from the characteristics of high-quality youth work and not just plain youth work, and then also going through the importance of research, which is also an important pillar. So yeah, in the next following talks, we will be looking into more specific practices and examples of what Europe Goes Local is when it comes to, to the on the ground scene. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Olaja. Like always, you don't cease to surprise us with how much you capture in this short time. Thank you very much. We are closing today's day of ID Talks. I would like to ask maybe Judit, as the coordinator of EGL, to say some closing words after today's ID Talks. And yeah, please.
Yeah, so I would like to thank you for the opportunity, of course, to give the floor to not just Europe Goes Local, but to local youth work in the ID Talks series. And I would like to encourage all of you to introduce a systemic approach in your work, to learn all these sessions in ID Talks, but also other materials and other sources, to create a systemic approach, to create stable frameworks for your work, to take a step away even more from ad hoc processes, ad hoc activities and one-time actions, because that's what we would like to promote in Europe Goes Local, to focus on stable frameworks, sustainable policies, and yeah, to engage young people in processes which they can trust and which they know what to expect from, and also engage young people fully when in a system and in a process where their voice is really heard and where the decision makers are accountable for what they promised, and young people can see the impact of their voice and messages and needs. So this is this is what I would like to also encourage all of you, just like all of us in Europe Goes Local, to work on such frameworks for local youth work and young people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith. And we are about to close today's ID Talk. Don't forget that we just started this new session, the 10th anniversary session of the ID Talks, fully devoted to Europe Goes Local practices. And next time, for example, we are going to go rural. So we are waiting for you in 2 weeks on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central European Time. And today, really, thank you so much, Jonas, Marko, Judith, for being here, for sharing a little bit of your huge experience and of the huge potential that Europe Goes Local has. See you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.